So one of the most recognizable stories that we come across in the Gospels that tell the story of Jesus' life is this wonderful story of a paralyzed man that comes to Jesus to receive a miraculous healing. This was in a period in Jesus' ministry where he was already starting to have this reputation that he worked in this miraculous way and could heal the sick and those that had faith that Jesus could actually profoundly transform their lives. But what's so cool about this story is that there's a group of friends, a small group of friends that bring the paralyzed man to Jesus. And we get to hear versions of this story in Matthew, in Mark, and in Luke. And in two of those versions, we hear this incredible story, which is what makes it so famous. And for all of us that grew up in churches, we would have heard this story so many times, is that the friends bring their paralyzed friend to Jesus, who's busy teaching in a home. And it's so crowded that the people have kind of spilled out in all directions around the little house. And so, of course, they decide to climb up onto the roof and dig through the roof and lower their paralyzed friend at the feet of Jesus. Now, Jesus' very first words to this paralyzed man is so important. And when we remember this story, what we remember is that there's a paralyzed man that by the end of the story, Jesus had miraculously healed. But it's far from the first thing that Jesus does for his life. Initially, he looks at him and he greets him with a term of friendship and belonging. He says friend or son, which straight away communicates to him that you belong here. And when we consider the cultural context that Jesus is speaking into, this is a really important statement. So there's this really horrible and broken superstitious belief of the day that if someone was experiencing a bad disease, or if someone had been born with some kind of disability, that people really wrongly assumed that there was some kind of sin or brokenness in that person's life or in their family, that they should have to suffer that fate. It was horrible. And so that paralyzed man, not only was he dealing with his physical challenge, he also had this incredible social challenge, being rejected for this broken, superstitious reason. And the very first thing Jesus says to him, friend, you belong here with me. And then the next thing he says is even more powerful. He says to him, not get up and walk, but he says, friend, your sins are forgiven. And Jesus speaks grace into his life. Now, what we don't yet remember about this story is that there was another group of individuals, Pharisees, the teachers of the law, those that had authority in the religious world of the day. They were coming to check on Jesus. They'd heard he'd been teaching some crazy things, doing some crazy things, and they wanted to see if he was kind of legit to them. And now when Jesus said this, your sins are forgiven, their blasphemy bells were just ringing in their heads. And they're like, yep, all of our fears have come into fruition. This guy, Jesus, he's crazy. He's doing things that no one should be doing. He doesn't have the authority to forgive sins. And then we come to the point in the story where we learn what all of this is about. Jesus says, you know what? So you know that I have the authority to offer belonging, to offer acceptance, to offer forgiveness, and to offer grace. Let me show you something. He invites the man up. He heals him. He instructs him to take his mat and go. And so the healing was the evidence of the more important truth, the truth that Jesus had the authority to offer grace, forgiveness, and belonging. Now, when it comes to our own relationship with God, this is the critical thing for us to hang on to as well. That sometimes we can come to God with a need, like the paralyzed man came on behalf of their friends. There was a physical need that needed to be mended. And sometimes we can get so lost in those immediate needs that we forget about the deeper soul need that God truly has come to offer life into. Sometimes I think of it this way, that if I kind of think of my life like a tree, and sometimes I look to find the blessings of God in the branches of my life, the things that I'm experiencing, maybe the things that my life is producing. But I think the real hope of God, the real hope of the gospel and the hope of Jesus is that he doesn't come to do something in the branches of my life. He actually comes to do something in the roots of my life, to bring life that sustains, that renews, that's more important and significant than anything else. So as we consider our relationship with God, our connection with Jesus, let's take hold of the most important truth, that Christ has come to offer something to each of our lives that is simple, that we belong with God, we are accepted with God, and we have the grace of God flowing into our lives.